but those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Isaiah 40:31, New Living Translation.
Finding my trust in the Lord is not always easy. I think a lot of us find trusting in God is not always the easiest thing to do. But when we do that, we find a strength that really prevails, that goes beyond any kind of human capabilities. And when we're in the thick of it, when we're weary, when we're burdened, when we're kind of worn out, we get that new strength that comes from God. And we have the ability to keep going, to get filled back up so that we can continue to do what God has called us to do. And so that's kind of how that verse speaks to me. It gives me hope, knowing that God is my strength, that He will continue to be my strength, and He will continue to give me what I need to keep persevering, to keep doing what He has called me to do. My name is Jon Weems. My title here at Christ Church is Co-Director of Student Ministries. I have been serving at Christ Church probably a total of about almost 12 years. On a volunteer basis, I served with my wife, Amber, at the Millstock campus for almost about 10 years. And then after that, it kind of transitioned into working full-time for the student ministry here at Christ Church back in 2024 in January. So a normal day in the student ministry probably looks like a lot of planning, and especially depends on what time of the year it is for us. Right now, we're in the middle of kind of our busy time. We're in spring into summer, and so we're planning a lot of different events. Our mission trips as well. So just planning either an event or just planning what we're going to be speaking about on a Wednesday or a Sunday, trying to get all that stuff together, our message, the slides we may have to use for that, what songs we may be using for worship on a Wednesday as well. Just getting together with all those who are involved in the process as for a Wednesday or Sunday, just trying to figure out, what do we need to do? How are we going to bring this message to the students in a way that they can understand, in a way that can hopefully allow them to ask questions about their faith and to encourage them in taking the next step in their faith. In regards to ministering to students and parents, because parents are obviously involved and want to be involved in their students' lives, especially in church, right? So obviously we mainly minister to the students, but the parents are a big part of this as well. So trying to keep in contact with them through email, through social media, just general questions that they may have. We encourage them to ask questions because we want them to know what their students are learning here. And so we want the parents to be actively involved with their students' walk in their faith. We want to be able to encourage the students to ask questions. If they have questions for the leaders, great. We want to encourage that. But we also want to be able to have them ask questions at home and tell their parents what they have been learning. We want the parents to do the same thing. We want the parents to be able to ask how their faith walk is going. And I think that's really important. So just trying to maintain that presence, not just in the students' lives, but also in the parents' lives as well, to get them actively involved with their kids' faith. Why do I do ministry? That's a good question. I believe that we're called not just to believe in who God is, right? And we know that's who we are as Christians. We believe that obviously Christ came and died and He rose from the dead, and that's essential to our faith. But it's more than just believing in that, we're called to serve, right? We're not called just to be stagnant in our faith and just to be comfortable. So I believe for me, I needed to just be available more and be available to do what God has called me to do. And I didn't know always what that was, but more and more, God has led me to serving in the church in some capacity, and now in the student ministry, obviously. So I want to be used by God, not for my own name, not for a title, which is very easy to fall into, because that's what God calls us to do. We are to go and make disciples of all nations, wherever that may be. For me, it's here at Christ Church. It's here with these students, and to help lead them, to help nurture them, to help just be there for them. I think there's definitely a need for student ministry. You look at the culture and the world around us, all the issues that this generation faces, and we need to build this generation up. There's so many things that they're facing, and social media and just media in general is really attacking that. It's so prevalent. So we need to be able to raise up this generation in the right way. And so at student ministry, I think is so important in today's age. We need to be there to show them what it means to truly live, and not just live for yourself, but to live for God. And then in turn, taking it to the next level, and then living for others, having that opportunity to live beyond yourself, to believe in who God is and what He has done for us, and to take that step out in faith, and to then in turn go make those disciples, make disciples of every nation, and to be there for others and just make it a domino effect. So if we can raise that generation up, then in turn, they're going to have that opportunity as they grow in their faith to raise that next generation up. And so the hope is to just build them up so they can in turn go out and help build the faith of others, help be there for others as well. So I've had a lot of challenges in my life and triumphs through that, though. And I think the triumphs are more important to look at than just looking back at the challenges and look at the negative. We've all been through stuff in our lives. For me, I've been through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of just questioning. I could have sat there and just let it define who I am. But the triumph that came out of that for me was learning to trust in God, learning to trust in Him for my identity. That my identity is not formed in my past mistakes, what people may think about me, what I think people may think about me, but knowing that I am who God created me to be. And I don't have to sit and look back at those challenges in a negative way. So I can look at those challenges now in a way where I could see God's faithfulness. So that's the triumph for me, is learning to trust God through those challenges in my life, and learning to know and knowing that I know who I am in Christ now, and that those things in my past no longer define me in that way, but I'm defined by who God says I am. One thing that brings me joy a lot lately is spending time with family and friends in the outdoors. I love to hunt. I love spending time out in nature, whether that's with my wife and my daughter, doing that together, or with good friends of mine. I just love being outside in nature. I love seeing God's creation, and that just brings me joy. I love just seeing all the neat stuff there is to see when we step outside. And so just spending that time, especially with family, especially with friends, it just makes it even better to be able to share that experience and to be able to find that joy and that awe and that wonder when we just take a step outside. So there are different ways that people can help out in the student ministry. We're always looking for leaders, whether that's on a Sunday or a Wednesday. We're helping out in a small group platform. We want to be able to create an environment where students can come together in intimate groups and smaller group settings. And so being able to have a leader there to help nurture that, to help bring that environment where the students can feel safe to ask those questions. There's a lot of questions that students have that they may feel afraid to ask. So being able to have those leaders there to make that environment a place where they can ask those questions. also just being a presence, helping with check-in, helping with being a smiling face, a welcoming face into the student ministry. There's different ways that you can serve, helping out with the tech booth on a Wednesday night. But yeah, I would say the biggest need probably right now is just leaders, like especially on a Sunday. Our group is getting bigger and bigger almost every Sunday, which is a great thing. But we also need some leaders to kind of help out with that. So for those who have been called to kind of help pour into this next generation, there's definitely a need for that. So there's always going to be something that competes with students that's going to try to pull them away from church. And so one of the things that we've been trying to do, and we started this past year, has been an athlete Bible study, because that is huge right now, whether it's with school sports or it's select sports. And so what we're doing now is on Sundays in the evening from 6 to 7, we're having a specific Bible study for those who are involved in any kind of athletic program. Even like if it's not necessarily just football, baseball, soccer, you name it, even like marching band, even some of those other extracurricular activities that keep students away, right? So we want to create that environment. So we have started that this year, and we're going to kick that back off in the fall. It's just another opportunity to provide for those who may not always have the chance to make it on a Sunday and Wednesday, so they have the opportunity to get poured into. If you've been thinking about getting involved in the student ministry, you feel that pull. First, I would say God's probably kind of working on your heart in a way. But I wouldn't just kind of push that away. I would definitely listen to that and pray about it. I ask God, is this something that you're calling me to? And if you're afraid about what it may entail, life's not always easy, and ministry can be hard, but if God's calling you to it, He's going to equip you to be able to do that, whatever that is in ministry. And so if He's calling you and kind of working in your heart to step out and volunteer in the student ministry, He's going to equip you to do that. Not only is God going to help you with that, but all of us here, we're going to rally around you. You're not alone here, so all of those who are involved in this ministry currently, we're all a family here. If you're maybe intimidated by that, don't be, because we're a family. We are a family here in the student ministry, and we all do this together. There's going to be points in our life where we struggle with our faith, and advice I would give somebody who may be at a point in their faith where they just have questions is, don't be afraid to seek God. Don't be afraid to ask God those questions, because He's big enough to handle those questions. And find time to rest and to get poured back into. Because the more and more that we step out in faith, the more and more that we decide to serve God, the more and more we're emptying ourselves out. So we need to have that time where we get poured back into. So make sure that you are finding that time to allow God to pour back into you. Whatever that may look like, whether it's attending a certain service or, listening to some worship music, diving into the Word. Keep up those spiritual habits. And I guarantee you it's going to help you along in your faith. And also find somebody you can walk through this life and your faith with. Find an accountability partner. Find a mentor. Find a friend or a family member that can walk alongside you to help you in your journey and to be able to ask those questions too as well.